Hello and welcome to Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Join us as we explore the tools and insights you need to jumpstart your financial journey. The unemployment rate drops to 3.8% last year. The Philippine Statistics Authority says that's the lowest jobless rate in 20 years. 2024's unemployment rate is lower than the 4.4% recorded in 2023. In December alone, the unemployment rate fell to 3.1% from 3.2% in November. Government attributes the decrease to the rise in employment in various sectors, including transportation and storage, construction, public administration and defense, and human health and social work activities.
Sa kabilang banda, ang mga subsectors na may pinakamalaking pagbaba sa bilang ng may trabaho o negosyo kung ikukumpara ang Disyembre 2024 sa Disyembre 2023 ay ang mga sumusunod. Agriculture and forestry, may bawas na 1.56 million. Ang malaking pagbaba sa bilang ng employed ay mula sa growing of paddy rice, planting, transplanting, and other related activities. Kasama na rin ang hog farming, growing of corn except young corn or vegetable, at growing of other vegetables, melons, roots, and tubers. Pangalawa, ang manufacturing na may bawas na 387,000. Bumaba ang bilang sa manufacture of products of bamboo cane, rattan, and the like, manufacture of veneer sheets, manufacture of plywood, lamin board, particle board, and other panel boards, manufacture of products of leather and imitation leather.
The Philippines has seen its unemployment rate decline, yet a significant number of Filipinos still consider themselves poor. This contradiction raises questions about job quality, wage growth, and economic resilience. Joining us live from Geneva is Stefan Kühn, senior economist at the International Labor Organization, or ILO, and co-author of the World Employment and Social Outlook report to break down the numbers and provide his expert outlook. Good morning to you there in Switzerland, Stefan. Grateful you could join us.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to Follow the Money. We just received our December employment data showing joblessness stable at around 3.1% or 3.8% for the full year of 2024. The Philippine stock market just now closed and fell at the news. Is this jobs data considered consistent with your latest ILO forecast?
Indeed, the jobs data is consistent with our ILO forecast. For the Philippines, but also actually globally, we are forecasting quite stable rates of unemployment and labor underutilization. But one also needs to consider that despite this, because of the growing labor force, the number of unemployed is actually going to increase because there's a lack of job creation. And in particular, if you look at job quality, there's a major issue globally, but also in the Philippines, that there's not enough quality jobs, formal jobs that are being created.
Understood. We will break those down one by one, labor force, as well as the quality of the jobs. Now, before that, your latest World Employment and Social Outlook report suggested that the Philippines' unemployment rate could decline further by 2026. How would you assess the overall Philippine labor market today, and what are the projections for both unemployment and underemployment in the country for the next 2 years?
The Philippines is characterized by a fairly high employment to population ratio, and a fairly low unemployment rate, especially in global comparison. But for example, the gender gap in labor force participation rate is fairly high. It's still above 20 percentage points, even though the women's employment participation rate has risen, especially after the COVID-19 pandemic. And concerning the outlook, we are indeed projecting a slight decrease in the unemployment rate, but it's very marginal considering where we are. And as I said, the decrease in the rate is not enough to counteract the increase in the labor force, which is growing quite strongly. So that means that the number of unemployed is going to increase. And this will also continue to be a push factor for outward migration, overseas migration of Filipinos.
To your point earlier, many experts argue that job quality, not just job quantity, is a real challenge in the Philippines. If the country wants to meaningfully improve Filipinos' quality of life, what types of jobs should it be creating more of? Are there policy changes needed to make that shift happen?
We can see that, so in general, formal jobs have a higher probability of also leading to higher quality jobs. And formal sector employment tends to be more present in manufacturing. And the Philippines actually has a very low manufacturing employment compared to other peers in the region, and also compared to globally, actually. And another thing is, so the Philippines has a very high employment in services, but a lot of those are traditional services like in retail trade or in transport. And those have a much higher likelihood of being informal and of having poor quality jobs. So the number of jobs in modern services, which are like in private sector businesses, they're actually less than 10% of all Filipinos that benefit from those. And to improve job quality, the activities need to upgrade to higher productivity activities. So that includes modern services, including the business outsourcing activities, but also manufacturing, even though, of course, in the current global environment, it seems more difficult to launch an initiative of developing through exporting manufacturing products.
Understood.
And
Continue, please.
And it needs upgrading, so one is macroeconomic stability and also a skilled workforce and upgrading of skills of the workforce and education so that foreign direct investment can be attracted as well.
Is there a metric on the level of skills that Filipinos have compared to the region or the rest of the world?
We can look at the occupational structure, and in terms of occupation, we can see that with the types of occupations, one would classify those more as low skilled or less high skilled than in other countries and in the region or in the world. That's the metric that we are using at the ILO, it's the occupations.
Understood. The Philippines currently considers individuals employed if they already worked for at least 1 hour during a reference period. Does this definition provide an accurate picture of employment? Does this match your definition of employment, or is there a case to redefine what it truly means to be employed in today's economy?
That definition matches the definition agreed internationally at the ILO, 1 hour. And it's one has to see, if one wants to know who is employed, meaning who is conducting work for pay or profit on the market, then that's the number. If somebody is doing that for at least 1 hour, then we have to consider them employed. It's just like that. However, if one wants to look at, okay, how many are there jobs lacking, one of course has to look beyond unemployment. And there's the rate of labor underutilization, so which is also published. And we can see that 10% of all Filipinos are stating that they would like to work more hours. So they don't have enough hours to work. And so the underutilization is the unemployment is the number to look at, to go beyond the simple unemployment and beyond the simple comparison of employed versus unemployed. And then, of course, the other thing is also what kind of jobs they have and the pay that they are receiving on that.
So would you say that underemployment is growing in the Philippines?
No, it's, I think according to the report published by the National Statistical Office, it's not growing. I don't think it's growing, but it's. I'm just saying that one has to look at underemployment as well, in addition to unemployment, to gauge the extent of lack of jobs.
Right. We actually have been showing some graphics on our screens there that there's a breakdown of employment classifications in the Philippines in graphics 9 showing regular, casual, project-based. Are these the same definitions or classifications that other countries have of the kind of employment that they have? You have seasonal, you have fixed term, probationary as well?
There are probably surely some countries that are using those, but it depends really on the country circumstances and on what's happening in the labor market to identify, to decide what categories are most useful to present. And for the Philippines, those are certainly useful categories to use.
Mm-hmm. We've also been actually taking a look at some of the charts that the ILO has provided for us, and they're grateful for and quite insightful, if I might say so. But one chart that it probably does not have is the one on remittances. Of course, Filipinos comprise a lot of the workforce of the world. Remittances are expected to grow by 3% last year and another 3% this year. How crucial is the role of overseas Filipino workers, would you say, in sustaining the economy here in the Philippines? And what does this reliance on remittances mean for job creation here at home?
Remittances are crucial to support household finances, especially of poorer households. So that's absolutely crucial. By supporting household finances, and also through poorer households, there's also going to be a support of local consumption, which will also support business creation, investment, and job creation in the Philippines. So remittances are a very important factor in the Philippines, that's for sure.
All right, we need to parse through a lot more numbers, but first we need to pause for a few reminders. But when we come back, we will look at how the Philippines job market stacks up against its Southeast Asian peers. Stay on BNC and follow the money. Welcome back to Follow the Money. We're still with ILO senior economist Stefan Kühn. Stefan, we have a report that the Asian Development Bank has committed about $500 million to support Philippine labor market reforms. Where do you think these funds should be directed to have the most meaningful impact on employment and job quality?
The funds will be directed actually at for the most part, to improve productivity and employability of workers. And I think this is actually a very good idea because it will have a lasting impact for the workers that are being targeted. And it's about skill development, but it's also about employment, so active labor market policies, about placement services to improve the placement of workers. One very important component of the project is as well to target disadvantaged groups, so for example women, but also youth, especially youth. So there's the jumpstart program that already exists and that will be expanded, and getting youth into higher quality employment through the appropriate skill development, but also through better placement, will have a very long-lasting impact on the Filipino economy, because the youth, they still have a very long career ahead of them, and so that's what I think should be done, and from my reading of the project, it is also being done.
Right. One of the news that the Philippine government and the private sector are kind of discussing right now is raising the minimum wage for the worker, coming from about $11 right now per day to $13.50 thereabouts. Would you have any kind of data that shows us whether this kind of pay, this kind of wage would be fair and sustainable for a country like the Philippines compared to our neighbors?
Sorry, I don't have any data to evaluate the level of the minimum wage specifically right now. But I do know from research results that very often incremental rises in minimum wages do not show any adverse effects on employment, but they do show a positive benefit in terms of incomes for those workers that are being affected.
All right. Meanwhile, while we're talking about our neighbors, do you have information on how the Philippine labor market performance measures up against other Southeast Asian countries? Are we lagging behind perhaps, or even ahead in some critical areas? And what can we learn from countries like Vietnam or Indonesia?
Indeed, the Philippine labor market, so as I said before, it's characterized by high employment rates and low unemployment, but it seems that the speed of structural transformation means transforming from to more modern services to higher value-added industry is not very high compared to peers. So in Vietnam and also in Indonesia, there have been much stronger increases in manufacturing. They have become manufacturing hubs, and that has not happened in the Philippines. As I said, also in terms of services, I already mentioned that the share in the private sector formal modern services is actually fairly low in total employment. And what needs to be done? It's having the appropriate right conditions for foreign investment, but also to have a labor force that's well educated and skilled, and potentially try to create some clusters for development. But I also have to say that our research our latest report shows that countries that do develop such clusters successfully, so it does lead to rising incomes in those clusters, and also on average for the country, but it will also raise spatial inequality, meaning inequality between different regions in the country. So where those clusters are developing versus regions where those clusters are not developing.
In your studies, have you seen just how much of an impact, how big a growth or jump in employment a country would experience depending on how much manufacturing they're able to incorporate into their economy, how much more business services, how much more educated the populace can be?
There's not so much as an overall jump in employment, because Filipinos, as I said, the employment rate is high, so they are doing some kind of activities, but a lot of them are activities just to come by, to make ends meet. And the objective is to have jobs that are formal, that are of a higher quality, higher pay, higher productivity. And the jump is, it's directly related to the share of employment that are moving into such activities. Now, with manufacturing, of course, one needs to consider that there's still a lot of manufacturing which is low value added, right? So becoming a manufacturing hub needs to lead to upgrading along up the value chain eventually, so that the quality of jobs, the productivity, and the pay will also increase over time from those manufacturing jobs.
All right. I wanted to talk about a little on automation and artificial intelligence. Of course, a lot of people feel that this is a threat to current employment. With rapid automation and AI disrupting industries worldwide, are there steps that the Philippines should be taking to ensure that its workforce remains competitive in the global market? You said upskilling, but upskilling towards what?
With AI, the ILO has shown in studies that actually a lot more occupations consist of tasks that are complementary with AI. So where AI can help the workers to become more productive. And there's not so many occupations where AI actually just risks replacing the workers outright. So, and I mean, the same holds for the Philippines. In the Philippines, currently, most of the jobs are not going to be affected at all by AI, just because of the nature of what people are doing. But in terms of future development, the skill development, the education should go for skills that allow workers to complement, to work better along with AI. One specific thing are the business process outsourcing centers, where one has to see that there's actually a risk of AI being able to substitute what has been outsourced to the Philippines. So that could be a challenge actually for the Philippines. But as I said, overall, most of the workers are not going to be affected by AI in terms of having to fear that they are being substituted.
In your experience or studies with how AI has moved employment all around the world, is there an industry or maybe a segment of employment here in the Philippines that you would like us to get into? Is there a sector that maybe we have yet to touch or explore that maybe we should be getting into?
Well, currently I think it's there's a lot of talk about AI, but a lot of businesses are not yet quite sure what to do with it and how it's going to affect their business. So they know or they have a feeling that it's going to have a big impact on their business, but they don't know yet. And the same is for sectors. So currently it's still hard to see what's actually going to happen, how AI is actually going to be used to complement or substitute certain activities. So I think right now I cannot make any such suggestion.
Very quickly, taking a look at the trend of employment or unemployment over the recent few years, especially after the pandemic, would you say that employment levels have normalized already coming from the pandemic, or is there still a few ways to go?
Well, in terms of employment numbers, they certainly have normalized, and for women, they have even gone up, and so that's certainly a good thing. But as I said, the question is on what kind of jobs are being made, being conducted, and one also has to look at the underemployment, time-related underemployment. So are people getting enough hours, and then also are they getting it at the pay that we would like? And for a lot of people, the answer there is no.
On that note, are there benchmarks or indicators that the Philippines, the government, the private sector should be looking at to assess whether government initiatives aimed at boosting employment are actually delivering results? And how soon do you think we should be able to expect meaningful progress if we were really working on, upgrading our skills and upgrading the kind of jobs that Filipinos acquire?
Yeah, so the indicators one should look at are, first of all, the indicators of inequality in terms of access to employment, so the gender gap in employment rates, and for youth, the number of youth not in employment, education, or training, so that those are declining. And in terms of quality, yeah, it's about looking at quality jobs, so formal sector jobs that have a good pay and good productivity. However, such changes so major structural transformation of the economy towards more quality employment, it does take time. So one shouldn't expect to see major changes in the composition of employment very soon. But one should look at the growth rate of formal sector employment compared to informal sector employment and see that that growth rate is accelerating now significantly for the next many years to come, so that the structural transformation can indeed get underway and eventually deliver noticeable results at the aggregate level.
And so it's a good set of reminders that we need to get it done immediately as soon as possible to get manufacturing back to the Philippines and investments as well as upskilling. Great reminders. We appreciate all of the research work that you've done. Thank you so much for the insights. Stefan Kühn, Senior Economist at the ILO, for sharing your insights. A pleasure to speak with you, and we hope to have you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, while headline unemployment figures show improvement, our discussion highlighted that the real challenge is creating high-quality, well-paying jobs that provide economic security for Filipinos. And before we go, we'll leave you with this thought from Joseph Stiglitz, an American economist, public policy analyst, political activist, and a professor at Columbia University. He said, "The real measure of economic progress is whether it improves the lives of working people." And that's today's edition of Follow the Money. I'm Raine Musñgi. Thank you so much for watching. Keep it here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel, always on top.